I loved a lot of the Brazilian food. You have your staple, rice and beans. You will eat rice and beans every single day. Occasionally, on a Sunday or something, they'll have some spaghetti or something ready for you, and then they'll often have rice and beans on the side as well. So that is your staple. You eat that all the time. In fact, Brazilians often don't consider it a meal, a complete meal, unless there are rice and beans there. And they have tons of traditional little dishes. It's funny. I think people often see America as a very like large, obese kind of country, though I don't really find it. Brazilians also kind of are just as chubby as we are oftentimes. And it's funny because America often gets that because of sugar input. And personally, I eat tons of ice cream, pie, whatever. I love my little treats. Whereas Brazil, lots of times you find lots of fried foods that create the same thing. So you find fried little snacks that you can get on the street for cheap. One of my favorites, which was called coxinha, and actually learned how to make them, are these little chicken snack things, I guess. There's a potato-based dough that is filled on the inside with seasoned chicken, shredded chicken, and then some cheese sometimes, and then wrapped up in this very specific teardrop shape, and then breaded and fried, and they are delicious. Something that everyone will grab just as a little snack on the road. Brazil especially has lots of these little snack places because lunch is their main thing. Sometimes you'll have a little bit of breakfast, but lunch was everything. Missionaries especially, we'd eat 2-3 plates sometimes of food, and big plates, so you get quite a bit of food, and then you just eat as much as you could. Lots of times, if I ate breakfast, it was something very small, a piece of bread, an egg or two, maybe some cereal, though I didn't eat tons of cereal on my mission. Most of it was just waiting until lunch, where you would fill up completely, and that would pretty much last you until the next lunch. We didn't stop for dinner a lot of time. We would go right through, and we would often buy little snacks at the bakery or little stores on the side of the road, or we'd go into a grocery store for some little cookies, and just something quick that we can eat on the go and then just keep working, because there is so much to be done. They have tons of traditional dishes as well, and you will just find every kind of meat imaginable. I used to laugh about it because in the US, you walk into a typical meat section and you see what's normal to us. You see some ground beef, you see some chicken legs, thighs, breasts, you see steak and pork, and maybe a little extra, but nothing very odd outside of that. Whereas in Brazil, if you go down the aisle in a grocery store, you will see cow tongue, you will see chicken feet, you will see intestines and stomach and ears and tails, and they even use cow feet oftentimes. There's a special soup there that they take just above the knee of a cow, and they'll chop it up and put it in a soup, and it's delicious. It's really good. They'll often make one of their main Brazilian dishes is called Feijoada. And Feijoada is actually a traditional slave dish where long time ago the slaves they wouldn't have very much meat. All the nice meats would go to their masters, and they would be left with this kind of poor meat. Oftentimes ear, tail, intestines, stomach, and just the fatty parts that people didn't want to eat. And they eventually made it into a soup kind of thing. And so feijoada is black beans and tons of water, and you cook all your meats in that water. So all your meats are very juicy. They're not dry. They're just packed with water, which gives it a very different taste and also just makes it super heavy. So we'd have feijoada every once in a while, and it's hot, and it stays hot in your stomach, but it's also just weighs you down a ton. So they'd find little different ways, putting in some orange slices or potatoes, and they had some tricks for getting out some of that heaviness you felt. and the salt content, but it's a delicious meal, and you find it very hard to walk after eating it. And often, I often found that some of my favorite parts of that meal in particular was cowtail. I thought cowtail was delicious. It's just very tender, melts in your mouth. It's a very small part of the animal, obviously, so there's not a ton of it around, but every once in a while you get a good piece, and just, it's delicious. There were some meats that I was not ready for, that I did not care for, cow stomach especially. I ate a soup once where, he had chopped up stomach along with these big white beans and stuck it in the special soup that they have. It's very typical for the north of Brazil especially. And the soup itself was delicious, the beans, everything. Getting to that meat though was hard to stomach. Well, no pun intended, but just the stomach lining in and of itself has a very weird texture that you're not prepared for. What else? One of the strangest meats I think I ate, and just foods in general, was blood sausage, where they'd take the blood from a cow, all the leftover blood, and they'll often leave it in a basin until it gets pretty thick, and they'll make sausage out of it. And you can season it just right, and it tastes really good. Both that is very categorized with liver as well, where it's just a very rich meat, so it's hard to eat a ton of it, but it's delicious what you do eat. Beyond that, you find everything is based around beans and rice. So you'll sometimes get a meat on the side, a steak or a chicken. Sometimes instead of beans, you'll have what we called stroganoff, and they'd have this tomato-based paste with some cream, and they'd put chicken and seasons and spices and stuff in with it, and you just pour it on top of your rice. Pretty much everything goes on top of your rice. Feijoada, you just pour on top. That other soup with the cow stomach, you just pour on top of rice. Stroganoff as well, pour on top of rice. Pretty much everything does. And they will mix all their food together. So even if you serve yourself sometimes with like rice, and then you put your wet stuff, whatever it is, main on top of that, maybe your salad on the sides, Brazilians will often just mix it all together and eat it as is. So it's a very efficient, I guess, approach to it. And it's something I kind of learned to do a little bit as well. I learned to just kind of mix my food together. Salad in particular was very much different from what we find. There often weren't dressings. They'd often use what I now love to use, which is just a little bit of lime juice, water, and salt poured on top. And salad for them is extremely basic. It's normally lettuce, chopped lettuce, chopped tomatoes, some chopped onions, maybe some cucumbers, maybe. But often it was just those three mixed together and tossed around. You'd find all sorts of different treats on the side of the road. There are always people selling. Brazil has a huge variety of desserts as well. You find these little chocolate, kind of like fudge, called brigadeiro, and they're delicious. You'll find them made of a coconut base, of a vanilla base, of this chocolate base. You can find cakes of all sort, pies. They love to do puddings and jello, and we've served all sorts of stuff on our missions especially. Brazilian people love to pamper their missionaries, and they will often give as much as they can. Some of the poorest people, in fact, will just give everything. They will offer to give lunch one time a month for the missionaries, or as much as they can, and they will just give, oftentimes it's something very simple, just rice, beans, a little bit of chicken, but they just give as much as they can to the missionaries. They love them so much. And other times you will find richer families who just go all out, and they will give you some extravagant kind of food and just tons of it as well. In one of my areas, there was a lady, and she just loved to feed the missionaries. And we'd go over and we'd find 2 different kinds of pastas with 2 different sauces. We'd find a huge salad. There would be chicken and steak and what they beef enrolada, which was just, they'd wrap beef around some vegetables, some carrots or something, and stick a toothpick in it and bake it as is. And she would make fried potatoes, French fries on top of that, have several different kinds of drink, and normally a cake and a flan or something. And it was incredible how much food there was. And one of the jokes we have on missions, or especially in São Paulo, was that there are always those typical lines that a sister in a ward will say to you. It'll always be like, "Elder, did you not like my food? Elder, eat more. Oh, I knew so-and-so, Elder, that he used to eat 4 plates of food. You've only eaten 2. Come on, you have to eat more." They'd always tease you about it. And it grew to be just a joke on the mission. We'd always say that. You didn't like my food? What is this? On top of that, Brazilians are well known for their juice as well. And you will find every kind of juice imaginable. What few people know is cashew. The nut is actually basically the stem of a cashew fruit that is grown a ton in the north of Brazil. And they will make cashew fruit juice. Well, juice the fruit and get a delicious juice out of it. You have guava juice. You have pineapple. They'll just put pineapple in a blender and make juice out of it. You have orange juice all the time. You will find shakes made with bananas. You will find lime juice is extremely popular there. They don't have lemons as much. It's extremely rare to find a lemon, but they make tons of lime juice. And that was one of my favorites, is they put some lime juice in, they make it all frothy, maybe put a little cream in there and tons of sugar, and it was just delicious. You'd have lots of soda as well. Brazilians love their Coca-Cola. And there, it's made with pure sugar, and it's a lot better than the Coke we get here in America a lot of the time. And one of their favorite sodas, which is actually one of mine too, it's called Guaraná. And it's a little red berry that you find mostly in the north of Brazil, and they just export it everywhere. And they make this soda out of it that you can find sometimes here in the States even, but it is delicious. It's nothing like you've ever tried. Brazil is just very rich in fruits, especially. Their land is extremely fertile. Even going to the Amazon rainforest, you see all the variety and stuff, and it's because Brazilian land in and of itself is very fertile. They do not have a great political situation, which has hindered them immensely, but the earth is extremely rich. And one of my favorite treats was called açaí. I don't actually know how you say it in English. I think it's acai, or maybe it's just acai berry. And they make an ice cream out of it, basically. And you put granola on top of that. You put bananas, strawberries, whatever you want along with it, and it is delicious. It's a cold treat.